Well, hey there, everybody. It's Carpa once again, and let's talk a little bit about faith and delusions. I thought it was about time to do a video like this. Every few months or so, I make a video that's kind of aimed at not necessarily knocking religion, but rather exposing the dangers of religion as far as the way it separates us from one another. Not to mention divisions within sects within each religion itself. And but division isn't the main concern. Really, the main concern I see is dogmatic, extremist views that are harmful to society. And this is kind of maybe a follow-up to some videos I've done in the past, such as Are Delusions Acceptable? And the conclusion I came up with, because I made a video, I don't know, a few weeks back about delusions, and is it okay to have a delusion and believe? And when I say delusion, I am referring to religion as well, beyond just delusions of believing in unicorns or fairies or things that we can't prove. Having an actual delusion that there is a ever-present God watching over your every move. These are things that people believe, and they have the right to believe this. The question wasn't whether people should be able to believe this, because it gives millions of people, billions of people, comfort to believe there's someone watching over them. So I can respect that. So let's set that aside and say that that part of the delusion, if a person wants to tell themselves and have faith and tell themselves there's a God, that is their free choice. However, not just the issue of them pushing it on other people, but rather if a person believes something that cannot be proven through the scientific method, or that there's no general consensus to prove or believe, there's nothing wrong with believing that, just so long as you're willing to take the criticism when others pick at the idea. In other words, if you're going to tell others what you believe and claim it to be the truth, you have to be willing to allow others to criticize it, because that's the world we live in. And the argument earlier I caught part of this, Richard Dawkins, one of his films, it was just on in the background, and I've never really been a fan of Dawkins, only because he's such a dry atheist, and I'm not really a hardcore atheist like him, but I totally see his point. I'm not an atheist at all in that regard, but I don't like to use labels, so we won't even get into the details of it. My faith, if there was any, comes from believing that there is something greater than us, and that's as far as I go. I don't know if it's conscious or aware. I don't know if it has individual souls involved, if reincarnation is true. None of that has proven itself sufficiently to me to believe that it is the one truth. And Dawkins was talking to this Muslim extremist. He was actually had very good English. He was a Westerner, I think, that joined Islam later. And it was guys like him that make people so despise Islam, because I've never been an extremely. I know that most Islamic people just want to live their life. They don't want to take anyone's land over. However, a large portion believe that the world should be Muslim, and of course the Christians believe the world should be Christian. And many of the Muslims say that they won't be happy until their land is all returned and all non-Muslims are gone from it. Now, let's consider this for a minute. These are people laying claim to land because they believe that it's God's land, such as the Temple Mount site, which has been fought over forever, and will eventually reveal that it's just been a source of misplaced understanding in what God might be, if there ever was. There's no location or site that would be worth taking human lives over or fighting over. And even if there were, no man lays claim to this land. No man can lay claim to any land, is my point. That this land, we forget that when the Muslims say we want our land returned, I say, what land? Just like the land of Israel, I don't get into the debate on whether or not Israel should be there. That's a completely separate entity, and I'm not getting into that. I'm just talking about the religious battles that go on between these groups. And it's because one side believes their truth is the only truth, and the other side believes their truth is the only truth. Now, there's people like me who are stuck in the middle, you and I, many of us, who have to watch the sides argue like children over things that they cannot prove or understand. Now here's where it gets fun. I shouldn't say fun, this is where it starts to bother me. This is where it gets into the reason why I speak out on it. Beyond all the damage that religion causes, which I can't really change or alter, anytime I've had a discussion with someone who is, say, a fundamentalist Christian, and as well as the arguments that I've seen, like the ones on that Dawkins film when he went and talked to Ted Haggard, I think Haggard was the guy's name, and he was talking about how, he's the guy that's all smiles. And if I'm not mistaken, he's the guy that got busted male prostitutes as well, which many of these evangelical, preachers have been found to be completely off the deep end, the opposite of what they're supposed to be. We've seen this over and over in the church. What this shows is not that the church itself is corrupt, it just shows that everyone is corrupt. And that no matter what religion you take, no matter who you are, or who people think you are, you're just a human. And when he was discussing it with this guy, basically what it comes down to is if you have an argument with a Christian and try to say, well, I'd love to believe what you believe, but there's no real scientific basis, then they will tell you that you worship science and that science is a religion or dogmatic in itself. And you will say, no, science is a method of obtaining information. And so far to this date, it's the best we have. I've talked to a lot of humans in my life, and no one has a method that's better than the scientific method. Because science wasn't designed to just fool religions. Science was designed to understand the world around us. And now that science has surpassed religion by far in explaining the world around us, there are still questions left to answer that we don't quite have. Such as, where do we come from? Where are we going? And religion hangs on to these few ideas, saying, haha, science can't prove these, therefore science is bullshit. And when you have a discussion with someone who is, say, of Christian persuasion, they will often say that they'll quote the Bible and talk about how man will be arrogant and think that he knows all, and in the end times, men will be deceived, and there's all these things that are put in there, obviously, in the Bible to explain to people why people don't believe what they believe, by saying that they're just fools, basically. And that Ted Haggard guy, who was telling Dawkins how arrogant he is to assume that because science thinks they have all the answers, and he says no, it's the exact opposite. This is a projection. Science doesn't claim to have all the answers at all. Science knows it doesn't have the answers. Science is there to learn the answers. Religion claims to have all the answers. So when I hear someone who is a hardcore evangelical telling a scientist that the scientist is dogmatic, that he can't change his opinion, and that he just can't see out of the box, it's a complete projection from the religious side. And so these are otherwise completely rational, normal people who believe in fairy tales. And so my question is, of course, because I've been back and forth on this, trying to understand it. Is it acceptable? Is it okay? It'll never go away. People do need something to hang on to and understand. Does that have to be a God? And all of these different questions that run through my mind. And finally, I always come to the same conclusion that religion does more damage than good. Because in order to hang on to the religion, people are teaching their children this is true. People are teaching their children that Jesus is the one to worship their entire life. People are telling their children that women should be oppressed and put in burqas. And people are teaching their children that the earth was created in 7 days. All of these things are so damaging to society that it just makes me sick. And I don't really know what else to say about it, except just to speak out on the issue and call bullshit on religion. And I hate doing it because it makes me feel like I'm that guy bashing religion, but I'm really not. I think that the way I'm wording this is I'm being as fair as possible and as rational as I can. But rationalism, being rational, is considered to be arrogant by Christians. That, sometimes things are beyond your rational mind. And I agree with that. And to a degree, I understand God in my own way. I go out into the woods, whatever I consider to be God. I don't like using the word because it leads people to assume that you believe that you're watched over directly and independently, and that your life really is an importance. And that when you die, you're going to spend eternity in heaven. And that people really believe that, and that's a very comforting thought, but it's ludicrous to actually consider it without any real evidence. It doesn't mean a person can't believe in an afterlife, but the problem with this is the afterlife becomes very specific. People don't just say, well, we all die and we go to this other place. They say, oh, well, we die and go to this place, but only because we worship this God and we pray to this guy. And oh, even if you prayed to this guy, if you didn't do this, this won't work. And then other Christians are saying, no, it was never about worshiping Christ himself. And then other people are saying, well, no, none of this matters unless you have your head dunked underwater and you're baptized. And all of these rituals are childish notions and symbols and metaphors, allegories and archetypes and ideas that we've hung on to out of desperation to understand the world. We can't let go of our fairy tales. And I know this is true because I find myself leaning towards them sometimes, thinking, could this be true? Could there be frequencies that allow us to tap into other dimensions? Could there be possibly a God? Could there be these beings that are aware and watching us? Could there be angels? I don't know, but I don't have any evidence to support that any of it's true. And I know that the more a person believes one thing, the more that they will be immersed and see that thing, whether it be seeing numbers, patterns, people, faces. If you you get a new car and all of a sudden you start seeing those cars everywhere on the road. You see what I mean? These are the things that people overlook in the way that the mind works, and it draws conclusions, So I have to ask myself if I believe something out of delusion, and if so, is that okay? So long as it harms no one else, right? But it always ends up harming someone else when people take it to the level of teaching it to their children, or telling others that they're wrong. So as long as I can as long as I can be told that see how much time I have here. As long as I can draw conclusions in my own life that when someone confronts them, this is my goal really in the way that I learn things. If someone confronts me on one of the things I believe, I have to be willing to either say, well, that's just what I believe and I have no evidence for it. I'm sorry, maybe I'm an idiot, which I have done in the past. And people walk away because they're not going to argue with someone who says, hey, I might be wrong. And that's good because, I'm honest. Or if it's something that I don't, if a person has a good point, I might say, well, you might be right. Maybe I don't believe that. And I've been known to change my opinion, instantly, because I hear something that goes, oh. And sometimes I'm let down. Sometimes it's something I really want to believe is true. And sometimes it's something that I hope isn't true, but I find out is. Sometimes I get into a conspiracy, and then later I'll think it's all bunk, and then later on I'll think, oh, maybe it's true. And I never lose sight of the idea that every day we're moving forward, that we can't cling to old ideas, we can't cling to our beliefs merely because they make us comfortable. But if we do, we have to be willing to take that for what it is. And if someone confronts us, to say, you're right, I don't know, but this is what I believe. And I think that would be a lot more comforting for more people if we could do that. Say, hey, I'm a Christian. Oh, I'm a Jew. Oh, I'm a Muslim. Well, that's cool. As long as it works for you. But it can't work because the ties between these specific religions are dogmatic, and they already have conflicts. It's like family conflicts over generations, and it goes on and on and on. It has to start fresh. And the New Age approach is one of the approaches a lot of people are taking right now. But I don't think that that's really going to work either. I think it's an individual approach. But so I'm running out of time. So have a great day, everybody.